A cinematic soundscape is made up of a tremendous number and variety of sounds. Some sounds are loud and expected, like the rumbling of a city bus or the honking of a car horn as we watch a busy downtown scene. Other sounds are more subtle, like the swish of fabric as a character drops their robe to the floor just before entering the shower, the splash of a swimmer as they enter the pool, and the subsequent slapping of their hands and feet on the surface of the water as they power through a series of laps. All of these sounds work to make the cinematic world on the screen more real and more relatable. Often these sounds are not captured during production due to the logistics of camera and microphone placements. Instead, they are created during the post-production phase and added into the final sound mix once the film is finished. Jack Foley worked as an actor and stunt double in the silent era of film. While the silent era is characterized as such, the films were far from silent. They were regularly accompanied by music and simple sounds. Silent refers to the lack of a dialogue track. As early sound cinema emerged, theaters would have a designated area near the screen. This space would contain various performers who would make sounds like clapping and cheering to accompany the images playing on the screen. This is called direct-to-picture sound. The 1920s saw widespread use of optical sound. Optical sound was a technique whereby transparent film was used to capture sound. There were other methods of capturing sound from movies, but optical quickly became the standard. Optical sound created new opportunities for building archives of sounds. Now editors could draw from various archives, allowing them to add or cut in an ever-growing number of sound effects. This process of adding sound effects after production was called sweetening. The practice and expectations of sweetening in sound led to the profession we now call sound editor or sound engineer. Jack Foley saw the new need for sound effects as his opportunity, so he built a studio to accommodate the needs of the changing cinematic landscape. His innovation was so pivotal, the practice of creating sound for movies still retains his name. Classic Foley sound was recorded in optical sound. However, contemporary Foley studios now record in digital and analog. A well-built Foley studio should contain several surfaces for which to create sound. Most important are a strip of asphalt next to an area of concrete. There should be a metal deck, a water pit, and the foundation of the primary asphalt studio should be built into the earth to prevent tinny or hollow sound. Now, when we say Foley, we are no longer referring to the man. Instead, we are referring to the post-production method of recording sound to match the action on screen. Foley is needed when a canned or pre-recorded sound effect just won't do. During a Foley session, the sound engineer will place cue beeps in the timeline. Cue beeps are simply beeps that act as a countdown to let the Foley actor know when to begin their work. Smooth integration is key. The best Foley art is nearly undetectable. Our everyday world is full of sounds that often don't exist during a film shoot, or they can't be easily captured during production. Think about all the sounds you hear and probably ignore during any everyday activity. Sitting at a desk and writing a short note, you might hear the soft swish of your hand as it brushes against the desk surface as you write. You might also hear the very quiet sound of the head of your pen as it creates your marks on the page, especially when you stop to place a period. These sounds are normal and unremarkable, but they are also the sounds of our real world. So when a filmmaker wants to create a real, immersive experience for the viewer, they know it's important to recreate these everyday sounds. Foley makes the cinematic world more real. It makes that world more relatable. Canned sound effects are useful in a pinch when your budget or your timeline doesn't allow Foley. However, Foley is the way to go when you need that particular swishing sound bunny slippers make as a character walks across the screen. So how do we get that bunny slipper sound? You guessed it. A Foley actor puts on a pair of bunny slippers, and on cue, they walk across the floor with an eye toward the screen in the studio to match the action of the character in our story. While they walk, the sound is being recorded and will later be added into the main sound design of the film. Like all actors, Foley actors are often required to record several takes before the sound is perfectly matched to the action in the film. Jack Foley left us an enduring legacy in sound effects. His awareness of the changing nature of cinema allowed him to reinvent himself and create a new industry, an industry of sound effects. He also created new professions, sound engineer and Foley actor. Foley sound is highly prized in cinema because it assists the filmmaker in creating a more realistic or relatable cinematic world, giving the viewer a more immersive and affecting experience as they watch.